Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move. Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement. Hello everyone, and welcome to the program Agriculture on the Move. I am Philip Sidney, your host. October 6th every year celebrated as World Food Day. This is an initiative of the Food and Agriculture FAO. The theme this year is Our Actions Are Our Future. Better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life. This is our discussion with my guest in studio today. And with me to my immediate right is Ms. Sherry-Ann Smith, who is our food safety specialist in the Ministry of Agriculture. And also next to her is our officer, Mr. Kemuel Jean-Baptiste, who is also attached to the Ministry of Agriculture. To you all both.
Thank you.
It's good to be here.
Well, because we want to dissect the theme.
Yes.
And of course the theme is, as I mentioned earlier, is our action. And there's so many areas that we can dissect. Tell us exactly, what are your thoughts on the theme?
Recognizing that this is World Food Day and this is all about food production systems, when I read the theme, Our Actions Are Our Future, it really brings to the fore for me our agri-food systems. Our agri-food system encompasses all the players that are involved in our food production, processing, consumption system. So you have the producers at the primary level, you have processors, the manufacturers, you have the traders, you have the input suppliers. At each one of the stages, including consumers as well, at each one of those stages and each one of those players, the individual action will determine what to the future. So for example, if highly processed foods that have terms of what is actually going to get on shelves, if manufacturers are not getting raw materials to process, all of it is integrated and it impacts the way our food system turns out. So for me, when we talk about our actions, our future, what we do today in terms of how we manage the decisions that we take, how we move to act within the food system will impact what happens in terms of food security, food source of the future.
Sherry, what's your take, giving probably a different spin?
Thank you for the invitation, Mrs. Sidney. Nutrition plays an important, actually it plays a critical role in human development, and the choices we make, actions we make, where our determine how long we live. And what I mean by that, based on the types of food we eat, it will determine how or the quality of life that we live. We see a lot of cases in chronic illnesses in St. Lucia, for example, diabetes and all these things, and all of this has to do directly with our consumption patterns. So people are eating more of advertised foods that TV, but the truth is it's really about how the food looks. It's about how nutritious the food should be. We need to eat more of a balanced diet from our six food groups. We need to exercise. We need to take actions as consumers. We need to have that kind of responsibility where our food choices.
Let's take it to another dimension, which is one of the main goals of FAO, and that is to alleviate hunger. And they are saying so that they want to obtain that objective by the year 2030. There are many hungry people in the world today. And
yep, about 3 billion.
Yes, and I'm sure as we speak Some of them do not know where the next meal is coming from. So let us look at production, Kemwell. Do you think from a St. Lucian standpoint, are we ready in terms of from the ministry's preparation of our work programs, in terms of attaining that production level that we think?
Yeah. Thank you for the looking at where we are now. We have what is required for production. What we need to look into is to enhance production efficiencies. By that I mean, how could we get more out of the resources that we have? From resources, we're talking about input supplies. Where are our seeds coming from? Do we have our own seed sources? Are these coming from foreign sources? If they're coming from foreign, how is COVID-19 impacting that? Among many other things. Who are they, and how ready are they to take on the challenge of looking at new production systems, the greenhousing, the housing, and so on? What support do they need? The Ministry of Agriculture over the years has provided a lot of training, but we need to continue doing so, because just like the education system, you have new entrants and you have people exiting. We do what is required. We need to look at our policies as a government as to how we support the production of food. Land issues, for example, the technical support service. Are we providing cutting-edge advisory services for livestock production, for crop production, for fisheries and so on, that we're sending to interact with farmers, livestock and so on? We need to ensure that we closely examine that, to ensure that we get the cutting-edge efficiency that we're looking for. The issue of export, the opportunities are there. Are we in a capacity to do it? Look at bananas, for example. What is required? We need to look at issues of soil health, productivity, where bananas are concerned, and all the crops, as a matter of fact. So for me, we have we understand what is required. Whether we're making sufficient investments in terms of building capacity, building competence, both at the farm input suppliers, traders, and so on. We need to look at where those people are individually, and provide a training and the support that is required for them to enhance their own efficiencies, both at the production level, the trade level, and even at the retail outlets and so on. I'm going up a bit, because let us look at the factors of production: land, labor, capital management. Yes. You know, do we have? So we're talking about production. Do we have sufficient land? Okay, I remember the land bank project. Where are we? There are young people out there who are looking for land. In fact, on this Productive Awareness Week, a program yesterday, a young gentleman attested to that. What is happening as far as availability is concerned? The land issue is a very close one, and we could spend a whole year talking about it, but very succinctly, governments need to ensure that government action is going to provide the kind of support that is required to ensure that lands remain in agriculture. The last few years, I've sat on the Development Control Authority as a director. I've seen so many applications for change of agricultural lands in valley areas that we've had to go to tribunals and so on to stop. We need to make a decision as a nation that we're going to retain some of these lands and protect them for posterity, for use now and into the future, particularly the valley lands. Do we have sufficient land? The answer is yes. Another challenge of land is who owns it. Very often the old timers are willing to release the ownership of the land system, so that needs to be sorted out. But those persons who are in production, the other issue about the land is the land productivity, land, the nutritional status of these lands. Unfortunately, we have the Moroccan government help us with mapping out our land capability classes and revisiting that and determining what the nutrients of these soils are. What we need to now do is to look at these soils on a localized level and get into plant nutrition systems that looks to enhance soil health. Soil health is absolutely important. When you look at labor, we spoke about excuse me, that OECS skills provided. A large number, I can't remember off the top of my head, were trained with basic agricultural training. We need to identify who those people are. Are they still in the agricultural sector? As we speak, the current government is looking at revisiting the Farm Labor Support Program. So they also will be receiving basic training in agriculture crops across the gamut. When it comes to capital, it's what Development Bank is all about. And a number of smaller agencies, the cooperative credit unions, the Farmers Cooperative Library, and a number of them, these are available. The challenge is the long tenure system sometimes hinders young persons from getting in there because they don't have titles. So we need to look at how we could provide them with long-term leases that would allow those lending agencies to provide them with the resource that they need. Some other kind of mechanism. In Israel, at least up to 50 years maximum that can be renewed. Can we look at systems like that we do not people free of major agricultural holdings, and when they don't feel like producing any, they sell it off to the highest bidder? These are some of the strategic decisions that we have to take moving forward. We don't take it today. By the time 2050 arrives, we will be lacking land to sustain agricultural production for food security and so on.
And let's move to nutrition. Let's move to looking at the young people in this country. Schools. There's a lot of poverty in the various communities. There are some parents, they cannot afford even to feed their children. I know there's a school feeding program in that program. Tell us a little about that program.
Okay, so on the CARICOM FAO initiative, climate resilience adaptation, FAO, they have pledged their support to the tune of $230,000 program in St. Lucia. That program, some of the activities we have on that program would be to train farmers, the farmers who will be selling to the school feeding program, rehabilitations of school kitchens, and also seen on food safety and quality. We also have procurement of equipment for the students, eating utensils, plates. So what FAO hopes to is basically beef up the school feeding program in St. Lucia, whilst battling with COVID-19 and battling with climate change, because as you know, climate change is affected when it comes to climate change,
vulnerable.
And very, very, very vulnerable. We see that every year during our hurricanes, during the drought seasons where food becomes very scarce. So the feeding program will actually help to ensure food security. We're working on food security and beefing up our food security in St. Lucia. It's also important that our students be well taken care of, because our students are seen, especially the school feeding program, as a social protection tool. These are the ones that is going to take over our country in the future, and we know that their livelihood is protected.
You see, in addition to that, I know there's also what you call the school garden and their greenhouses at some of the schools. How is it an ongoing program so that the students, in terms of producing for themselves, they can also be involved in educating themselves as agriculturists?
Okay, so currently agriculture is not part of the school syllabus, and we're working very hard as a team. Recently we signed a memorandum of understanding, and we're hoping that agriculture can be placed back in that curriculum. Then some of the teachers, what they do, they incorporate that agricultural science during their science lessons. Okay. And the children get that kind of work. But we have schools that produce sometimes on a monthly basis. If before the advent of COVID, some schools were generating revenue like up to 6,000 jobs. 6,000 from their school garden.
Well, last point, because we are due for our first break. You're watching Agriculture on the Move. Stay tuned. Don't go away.
Banana farmers, remember me? I destroyed the Gros Michel banana variety some years ago. Now, my cousin, Tropical Race 4 or TR4, a Fusarium wilt banana disease, is on the horizon in a more aggressive form and can wipe out the banana industry in a flash. Be vigilant. Don't bring any banana plants or plant tissue into the island. Report any unusual symptoms on your banana plots to the Department of Agriculture at telephone 468-5600 or the extension officer in your area. Remember, protect the vital banana industry.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture Move. We are discussing World Food Day. Kemuel, one of the problems, it's a problem because climate change is a problem, and it's here to stay.
Yes.
Right? So we need to mitigate.
Yes.
What is the ministry doing in order to ensure that we can still produce, because we need to eat? Every day we need to eat. We must produce enough so that we can reduce on our food import bill. So what programs are there to really work within the system?
So there are two major players on our environment right now. One is a health-related trouble, which is the global pandemic, of course, climate change, and us adapting to climate change. We already have established, with support from the Sustainable Department, a national adaptation plan that looks at agriculture, very specifically water and also fisheries. And coming out of the national adaptation plan, there is strategic adaptation, a sectoral adaptation and strategic action plan. Essentially some of the actions that are required for us to become more resilient, to build resilience, and to adapt to climate change. A major challenge in this environment is to ensure that information is shared with us, input suppliers, producers, traders, consumers, in terms of setting themselves up to face those battles. So let's, a classical example, producers need to deal with floods and so on, and drought. Two extremes. So it means that we now need to provide support in terms of proper drainage out of the fields and so on. Comes to drought, the issue of rainwater harvesting, water storage, auxiliary water supplies for the farm. There's also a major challenge, management of risk. There's a huge amount of risk in agriculture, risk from poor labor performance, risk from pest and disease, risk from availability of funds. In the case of agriculture, we've had, in the case of bananas, wind crop and so on. Right now we have the Livelihoods Protection Program that can provide support. In cases like Hurricane El recently, government put a huge amount of money to support recovery efforts. What I think, and I'm reiterating from the previous conversation, needs to happen, Sid, is for us to have a mechanism to monitor and evaluate the investment being made for post-recovery. When we invest millions of dollars to assist producers and other stakeholders within the food production system, we need to be able to go a year or so, evaluate it, and it is achieving the desired output. Fortunately, as we speak, the St. Lucia has been a beneficiary of a net $1 million US grant fund from the adaptation that looks at a number of areas. Looks at the education process in terms of building resilience. It looks at the issues related to water security, stabilizing slopes and so on, and a concept that is called agro-parks. The agro-parks essentially is going to demonstrate, is a demonstration that farmers should emulate or try to adopt on their farms as part of a process to build resilience and to adapt to climate change. That's the physical environment on the one hand, and there's a lot more that can be said. The other major player right now that we have not spoken much about is this whole pandemic. The pandemic has reduced labor productivity in a massive way. The pandemic, we now see, and it's in the grapevine, that the overall global food production is being reduced, and there's a possibility of reduction of available food supplies. I mentioned earlier, and I'm reiterating, the issue of seed availability. We don't have heirloom seeds. We have very few heirloom seeds in St. Lucia and in the Caribbean. We now need to think of how we could set up a seed storage bank of some sort, so that when these situations happen and we can't get supplies in, that the country can maintain its own sovereignty in terms of those input supplies. We need to start beginning to look critically at integrated plant nutrition and integrated pest management, or more what we call organic agriculture. Cuba shown their resilience in doing it over the years because of the embargoes they were able to billions. Because of the pandemic, climate change impacts, we now need to look at issues of of how we could reorient our farmers towards organic systems or integrated systems that would ensure that if we don't have external supplies or if the external shocks become severe, that we actually can survive. And it starts with advocacy, the extension services, advisory services, working with farmers, working with food processors, along the food system to ensure that everybody understands the importance of building resilience in a climate change environment and a pandemic environment.
And also the Seven Crop Project came in at the right time.
Yes.
In that we grow more,
yes,
so that we import less.
That's right.
You
That's what it's looking at. Yes.
And I think as we add to climate change, it is important for the farmers to be aware, especially during the hurricane season and the drought season, like we said, to be aware of the farming techniques that they use. Also, post-harvest, when increasing temperatures, you don't expect to harvest the same way that you would harvest temperature. So you have to look at your transportation. You need to put your good agriculture. And the Ministry of Agriculture, I'm very proud to say, we provide that kind of training to the farmers through the Extension Division. So the training is there, but we also need farmers to change their mindset. Too often we see farmers not wanting to follow or to move up the time, I should say, following the time, because the technology, the science is changing, and we need to be up to the time. We need to, because the climate is changing. We have to change. We have to change.
Yes.
We have to change.
Exactly. That's what food safety comes in right now. Because I'm thinking here again, farmers cannot do things con la coutume. You know, like you mentioned, the harvesting methods have to change. Not too long ago, I think last week, there was a little workshop at Union when they looked at harvesting of lettuce.
Yes.
So the farmers have to understand that you cannot do things as usual, right? Because at the end of the day, right, you have worked hard to produce it. Why should you mess up when you come to harvesting for marketing?
The truth is, Mrs. Very often the farmers get the blame, and I understand that. But when we speak of tea, everyone on supply chain is responsible for that product. From the time it gets into soil until it gets to your table, everybody is responsible. The farmer has his part to play, but most importantly, the consumers have their part to play. So you expect to go to the fishes, you buy fish, keep it at the back of your the entire day, and then you go home and then you would blame the fisherman for selling you fish. Obviously, you didn't use the correct temperature. You didn't store it properly. You didn't work ice or a cooler to ensure that maintain the correct temperature. So the consumers themselves have to take a little bit of responsibility. Safety is concerned.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But then right now, I think the ministry have put things in place with marketing board. Okay, there is a pack house. Could you say anything about that pack house? Supposed to happen there? So,
pack house, basically the objective is for storage purposes, because we know very often we have a lot of seasonal crops, and during particular peak seasons we might have a great amount or larger quantities. So that pack house basically is to help the farmers in the storing of those produce.
That's what comes to food safety. Because it goes back from production. The farmer again needs to know, right, when it comes to pest and disease management, he's supposed to do it correct, right? And there is a time frame from spraying to harvesting, and you harvest before that. That's why you find a lot of our consumers are concerned whether that produce that they're buying is laced with chemicals.
And one of the benefits of the pack house is particularly for export goods. In terms of export, the international community is seeking for assurances.
Right.
They want to know, what happens after this harvested. How is it prepared before it leaves country? And so that facility allows some peace of mind to some extent, and who are on the other side of the spectrum to feel secure that the foods are being properly processed before they leave the country.
Yeah,
that's one of the purposes of that packhouse as well.
As we're about to end, because we're getting a few more minutes, do you have any final words that you would like to say to the public as far as World Food Day is concerned?
Yeah, I was reading a script earlier, and I came across a script as this. They said the food you use and the way you consume it to our health and that of our planet. Food that we choose and the way we decide to eat it. Very important as we recognize World Food Day, and the theme for this year, it looks at our actions, our future. It looks at issues related to production, nutrition, environment, and better life. I want to say to our public that we would want to encourage them to eat wholesome foods, seek to minimize processed foods, sharing on, pay attention to how you handle those foods, how you store it, how you prepare it, and this is absolutely important. To our traders, we are saying please do your best to maintain cold chains so that we do not cause unnecessary food loss. To the farmers and producers, let us ensure that we reduce post-harvest or even pre-harvest losses by doing the proper practices. And I would like to say to our input suppliers, please authentic supplies, authentic seeds, fertilizers, and what is needed to ensure that when these are utilized, that we could optimize production, the production potential of these crops. And so if each one of the players along the food system or the value chain, as we call it, takes up personal responsibility, understanding that action along that chain will impact final product and impact well-being, health, and so on, I think we'll be doing well in honoring this theme for this year, our actions, our future. Yeah.
Cherian, final words?
For me, I would say we cannot achieve food security by ourselves. It is not an individual thing. It is something that we gather to it. Everyone along the food chain, along the food value chain, play their part in it. And we need to take responsibility for the food we eat. We need to as well. We need to eat properly, and we need to ensure that we can live a little longer.
Build up our resistance.
That's good.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Just before we end, I just want to tell you, COVID has messed us up because we can't carry out the program that we have done in the past. The last program we had was 2019. We had a very huge exhibition at the sampling field at the VG. We had not last year. We tried our best to put something together this year. And on Friday, which is the 15th, we need to remember that there are lots of persons out there who cannot get a World Food Day. We need to remember them. And we are doing so on Friday in the town hall. The Japanese embassy, who have agreed to sponsor to feed the poor and the needy on that day. And also there is a farmers market, again in collaboration with the Taiwan technical team. That will be a World Food Day event in the Constitution Park in Castries. So on Friday, just need to follow the protocols. You can come in there, you can buy, you can sample, because it is World Food Day. World Food Day is on Saturday, where we are going to be replaying a lot of our discussions, over. So we want to thank you for being here. Thank you for viewing the program. I want to thank you, Sherian, for being here. Kemba, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
And I'm hoping that we will continue to view this program as we continue to bring you more information on a weekly basis. Remember, agriculture is our business, and eat fresh. St. Lucia's best. Goodbye.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole movement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole movement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole movement.